So it's a whole different kind of driving, and it's not for everybody, but but when you get hooked on it, it's probably about as addictive as cocaine. It's a very
From my understanding, you're 9 to 5. You're a doctor.
Well, actually, I am still a doctor, but I retired from active clinical practice about 7 years ago now.
Okay.
I'm a neuro-ophthalmologist, so I'm a medical neurologist, not a neurosurgeon, but a neuro-ophthalmologist. And I was trained first in neurology, then in a subspecialty of neurology. And I practiced that for about 30 years, and started young. And I basically ended up retiring at a fairly young age for mostly positive reasons, and found a few years after that I found a new passion, which has become essentially a second career.
Yeah.
And I'm an AM driver who started driving. I actually turned the first wheel in a real race in January of 2013.
Okay.
And the story is interesting. That I first started driving high performance cars. My wife is an economist and was attending a conference at Half Moon Bay, south of San Francisco. And I was with her after I'd retired, just being supportive. And I don't play golf. She said, "You look really bored. Why don't you see if you can find something to do?"
Yeah.
And I said, I'm like, "What?" And she said, "Well, see if there's like a driving course or something around."
Yeah.
And I said,
So your wife encouraged it.
"Yeah."
Wow,
yeah.
that's
so
cool.
I said, "Wow," you know.
Yeah.
So I found that Skip Barber online. I found that Skip Barber had a 2-day high-performance driving course at Laguna Seca, beginning the next morning.
Yeah.
This is about 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah.
So I called up, spoke to my friendly Skip Barber representative in Atlanta, who found me a seat in that course, and
Wow.
and I just had a great time. I'm not sure I was particularly good at it. I was probably one of the better students in terms of car control and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
but I just had a great time, and I, at the end of it said, what can I do to keep going?
What's the next step?
Yeah, what do I do next? And he said, well, you might want to come back and do a 3-day racing course. And I said, okay. And they had an option to do that in a Formula car or in an MX-5, a Mazda MX-5, sort of a Miata on steroids. And I chose the Miata. Now, there's an interesting aspect to this, which is that at that time I weighed around 300 pounds.
Right, I was going to ask you about that.
I was a big guy, and I had gradually gained weight. I've always sort of fought my weight, and I ended up doing my first few races in the course of going through a very aggressive weight loss. So I made a decision in November and December of the previous year, 2012, and chose to go through a laparoscopic gastric bypass, which I would strongly advocate to people who have the level of issue that I had with the weight. And it is really the only surgical treatment right now is the only way to really persistently manage that. And by that plus persistent watching of my diet, I've managed to keep that weight mostly off. So it's pretty important. So anyway, I started racing. It was sort of part of a whole life transformation for me.
Yeah.
And I actually turned out to have a little bit of aptitude for driving a race car.
Yeah.
And so I ended up buying my own race car in the spring of 2013. I bought a Corvette from Joe Aquilante, who is the principal of Phoenix Performance, and he took me under his wing, and I became sort of part of the Phoenix Performance team and group. And at the end of that season, I ended up going to the runoffs. I qualified second in the T1 class at the SCCA runoffs that year in my Corvette, and was sort of amazed myself that things were going so well.
Yeah.
And it's kind of gone on from then. We ran most of a Continental season in a Boss 302 Mustang the next year in Continental Tire Series, and then we've run. I've run this is my fourth season in World Challenge.
Yeah.
The first year I ran the Boss 302 and the GT3 Cup car, Porsche GT3 Cup car, and then the next year just the Cup car, and then last year I started out in the Cup car and I switched over to driving a Porsche GT3R, an FIA GT3 car, which you know, I have to say, without the tutoring that I've had and coaching from both Andrew Aquilani and Kurt Rezatano with Phoenix, and also Andrew Davis, who's been my driver coach for 3 years now, who's obviously a wonderful and experienced sports car driver, endurance and sprint. I probably wouldn't have even thought about getting in a GT3 car, but it was a lot of fun. You know, it took me a while to kind of come up to speed with it, but by the end of last season, I was at least in sight of the GTA field in World Challenge, so that was pretty fun.
That's cool.
And here we are now. I've switched to GT4. I've sold my GT3 car, and we're now running in the GT4 spec Panos Avizano, and I'm teamed with Ian James, who's a terrific teammate and excellent professional driver in his own right. Yeah, we're having a great time.
Is it accurate to say that, you know, just as a man, you're living the dream?
Absolutely. I feel very fortunate. I feel extremely fortunate. The opportunity to do this, to be healthy enough. You know, I'll be 63 next month. I'm 62 now. To be 63, to be fit enough still and healthy enough to do this, and to have the financial resources, you know, to do it, and to have had all the people help me, you know, that I've had. It's been amazing, actually.
That's pretty cool.
I can't describe to you how fortunate I feel.
That's awesome.